all, welcome back to my channel Learn to Code with Anjali, and today we are going to introduce variables and data types in your Java programming language. So we have done that what are the basic features of Java. We also did how can we work in the BlueJ environment, and today we will be working specifically about some coding standards. So we'll start with the concept of variables and data types. Now, when you have to work in programming, obviously you're going to work on the data. That means the values which have to be processed. So if I'm working for a rectangle, I need to process its length and breadth. If I'm working on something else, so I have to take that. For example, if I have to take name and marks of a student, or I have to enter age of a person, or I have to enter the product and its cost or quantity, whatever. So I have to work on certain values. When I have to work on certain values, I need to store them somewhere. And where do we store them? Those are variables. So how do we create them? We'll do that. First of all, I'll make a new project here, and the new project is, I just write data, and okay, so this is your new project, which is initially an empty project. We need to make classes over here. So I create a new class and I give it a name, say product. Okay, now if I have named it as product, now how can you define a product? Because we know that Python, this Java is an object-oriented language. So now since it's an object-oriented language, everything is an object. So what we need to do is we need to define a product. A product might have an ID by which you identify it in a store. Then you would be having a product name. Then I could be having product category. Then obviously the cost, and let's say how much quantity we have in the store. So if I have all this, so since this is your object-oriented language, so I'm focusing on creating objects from the very beginning so that you understand it that way, right? So when I'm talking about product, what all I need to store about that could be product ID, product name, which category product belongs to, means whether it is a household, whether it's a furniture, whether it is grocery, if you want to take that. So category is optional. If you want, you can have it. If you don't want, it's still up to you. But let's say I'm taking it. So I have product ID, product name, category, the cost of the product, and then I'll be having the quantity of the product. So if I need to store all this, so where I'll be storing it would be variables. So to define a variable properly, like a typical definition of the word variable is a named memory location used to hold a value. So in memory, see, everything you use in your program is going to be stored in your main memory, that is RAM, random access memory. Now we don't know at which address my value is going to be stored, but we give it a name and we refer to that location with the help of the name which we have given, and that name could be called as identifier, or you can also call it as token. But identifier, token, or anything, or in simple word I call it variable name. So we need to name that, and for naming a variable you have certain rules which you must follow, like you can't have special symbols except underscore in a variable name. So whenever you will choose a name, you have to be very careful, and for that you need to follow these rules, that only alphabets, digits and underscore is a special symbol that is allowed. We can't use anything other than this. So no spaces, no special symbols other than underscore. Then first letter can't be a digit. So first letter of variable name can't be a digit. So it cannot be a digit. First letter has to be either an underscore or an alphabet. Then variable names are case sensitive. So case sensitive means that if you have declared a variable as ABC, So it would be different than the variable named as ABC because the case is different. So you have to be careful about that. Then there are certain words called keywords in programming. So keywords are the words which are already defined to the compiler, like we had class, public. So those words are already defined, they have a designated purpose. You can't use those as variable names. So keywords can't be used as variable names, so you can't use them. So these are the basic rules which you have to keep in mind while giving the variable name. Okay, another thing is, when you have to take a variable, you must mention its data type. So data type is very important in Java, and Java is a very strongly typed language. And what do we mean by strongly typed language? That if you have to take an integer, that means a number without the fractional part, it has to be an integer. If you're taking a float, it has to be a float, that is a number with fractions. Same way we have string, we have boolean, number of data types are there, but you have to tell which type of value you're using for a variable. So generally the major ones, the basic data types we use are integer. Integer are the numbers without any fractional part. So numbers without any fractional part, that means your whole numbers. So whole numbers are said to be integers. Then we have floats. Floats are numbers with a decimal, that means with a fractional part. Then you have char, that is character. We hardly use a single character anywhere, but still you have a data type called char. This can hold one character, and when we say character, it doesn't mean alphabet. Character means alphabet, special symbols, space, digits, everything. Every printable character on your keypad is a character. Okay, if you want to take a collection of characters, that is termed as a string. Like if I have to store my name, if I have to store my address, so that would be stored in a string. And then is boolean. If you have to store true or false somewhere, we can use boolean data type for that. For all these data types, you have certain words which you will be using. Like for integer, you can write int. For floats, you can write float. So these keywords are always written in small letters. So for integer, you have four options basically. I can take byte, I can take short, I can take int, I can take long. So it's byte, short, int and long. And for floats, you have two options, that is you can take float or you can take double. And then for character, it's just char, and for boolean it is boolean. Now string is not a basic data type, it is a reference data type. So that's why the word which you use to declare a string is not in small letters. Here S is going to be capital, so it's going to be string. So these are the words which help us. Now what is the difference between all four options which you have available for integer? This is basically telling that how much memory we should occupy. Like if you want a very small number, you can take byte. It can't store a number bigger than 127. So 127, that is 127 is the highest value you can store in a byte variable. Then you have short, which takes 2 bytes in the memory. Int takes 4 bytes in the memory, and long takes 8 bytes in the memory. So as the memory size increases, the capacity of the variable increases. So the range of the values which you can hold in them, that increases. Similar way for floats, I can have float which takes 4 bytes. I can have double that takes 8 bytes. Now float is going to have 6 digits after the decimal, whereas double can store up to 12 digits after the decimal. So that's how your float works. Character is single character. It takes 2 bytes in the memory and is stored in Unicode, that is universal code format. Boolean can have only true or false, and string can have any number of characters. So now, knowing these data types, I have to choose data types for my product. Product ID. Now if your product ID is going to be like 101, 102, so I can take integer for that. If I want P10, P11, then I need string for that because an alphabet is also there. So you need to choose what do you want. So I want that it should be integer. The name obviously is going to be some name. For example, I have pen, so it's a name, so it has to be a string. Category is that it's a stationary item, so that also needs to be a string. Cost, now cost can be like 4 or it could be 4.2, anything like that. So if it could be in points, then it needs to be double. Okay, then quantity, obviously I can have 5 pens or I can have 6 pens, I cannot have 5.5 pens, so it should be integer. So that helps me to choose the data types for this. Now how are you going to define them in the class? Like here I'm going to take private int PID, then private string name. Since these are the class data members, so we are putting this private thing, but if you take local variables, you can take it normally. I'll show you how, but right now just understand the naming and the data type thing. So name is a string, then you have category. So this is category, and obviously we need to put a semicolon that marks the end of the statement, and then I need cost and I need quantity. So that is it. So this helps you to identify that what are the different data types available and how can you choose them for your variables. So this is how we choose them for our variables and use them in our code. I hope that helps. So you should just understand this thing only from this video, that how we choose the data types for different data members, right? And how to declare them over here. So I think that's clear. If yes, do click the like button. If you have any doubts, feel free to write in the comments. I'll be happy to help. And that's it for this one. Before you leave, do click the like button, share the video and subscribe the channel. And I'll come up with the next video where we are going to work a lot more in Java programming. Thank you.